What if I told you that every single day you're being taught a version of English that doesn't actually exist? Not in movies, not in real conversations, not on the streets of London or New York. Native speakers never say, "let me." They say, "lemme." And nobody ever explained why. Every textbook lied to you by omission. They taught you grammar rules but hid the real sound of English behind them. Here's the truth. English, when spoken fast and naturally, melts. Words blend into each other like ice cream on a hot day. Let me becomes lemme. Going to becomes gonna. Want to becomes wanna. This isn't laziness. This isn't broken English. This is the secret rhythm that native speakers grow up hearing before they can even read. And if you don't know this rhythm, you will always sound one step behind, no matter how many words you memorize. By the end of this video, you won't just understand lemme. You'll understand the hidden system behind almost every native sentence you've ever struggled to catch. Stay with me. This is going to change how you hear English forever. What if the word you thought was slang was actually one of the most natural sounds in the entire English language? Lemme is not a separate word. It is let me, compressed by the mouth's natural laziness for efficiency. Native speakers don't sit down and decide to shorten words. Their mouths do it automatically, the same way water finds the fastest path downhill. When two sounds sit close together and share similar mouth movements, the brain merges them without permission. T and M are both quick, blunt sounds made near the front of the mouth. So instead of pausing to pronounce both clearly, the tongue slides straight through and let me collapses into lem. This happens so early and so often in a native speaker's life that by age 5, most children are already saying it without ever being taught. It's not until they go to school that they even learn let me is the correct written form. This is the shocking part. For native speakers, lemme came first. The formal version came later, only for writing. So when you were taught let me as the primary form and lemme as some kind of exception, you were taught the language backwards. You learned the rule book before you learned the reality. And that single reversal is why spoken English feels like a different language entirely. The real reason native speakers reduce words. What if English wasn't actually being spoken correctly by anyone, including native speakers, if you judge it by textbook standards? Every language on Earth follows something called the principle of least effort. The human mouth is naturally driven to say the most, using the least amount of energy in the shortest amount of time. This isn't a flaw in English. It's a survival mechanism built into how humans talk. Think about it. Nobody talks the way they write. Writing gives you time to plan every letter. Speech doesn't. Speech is fast, emotional, and reactive, so the mouth cuts corners wherever it safely can without losing meaning. Lemma survives because dropping the T sound and blending let and me doesn't confuse anyone. The meaning stays crystal clear, so the shortcut becomes permanent. This is exactly why natives say gonna, wanna, kinda, and hafta. These aren't mistakes. They are optimized versions of speech, refined over generations by millions of mouths, repeating the same efficient shortcut until it became standard. Non-native learners often try to pronounce every letter perfectly, believing that's what correct English sounds like. But ironically, speaking too clearly, too slowly, and too properly is what instantly signals you didn't grow up hearing the language. Because natural, native-level English was never designed to be spoken that carefully in casual speech. Why textbooks hide this from you? What if the very books designed to teach you English were quietly working against your ability to actually understand it? Most English textbooks are built around formal, written grammar, because grammar is easy to test, easy to grade, and easy to standardize across millions of students. But spoken English doesn't follow those same clean rules, and teaching lemme, gonna, or wanna doesn't fit neatly into a grammar chart, so it gets left out entirely. This creates a dangerous gap. Students spend years mastering grammar on paper, then land in a real conversation with a native speaker and understand almost nothing, because the spoken version sounds completely different from what they studied. It's not that the student failed, it's that they were never given the real material to study in the first place. Imagine training for years to recognize a song by reading its sheet music, then hearing it played live for the first time faster, blended, with notes sliding into each other. That shock is exactly what learners feel the first time they hear natural, reduced English in real conversation. This gap is also why so many advanced learners say they can read English fluently, but still struggle to understand native speakers in movies or fast conversations. The reading skill was trained. The listening skill for real, reduced, connected speech was never taught at all. And that missing piece is often the single biggest reason fluency feels permanently out of reach. Lemme is a rule, not slang. What if Lemme wasn't casual slang at all, but actually followed a precise, predictable linguistic rule that you could learn in minutes? Linguists call this process connected speech, and it isn't random, it's systematic. When a word ending in a consonant sound is immediately followed by a word starting with a similar or quick consonant sound, native speakers naturally blend them to save time and effort. Lemme fits this pattern perfectly. The T gets absorbed, and the two words fuse into one smooth sound, lemme. This same rule explains dozens of other reductions. Don't know becomes do know. Give me becomes gimme. And what are you becomes whatcha. Once you see the pattern, you realize these aren't isolated exceptions to memorize. One by one, they are one single rule applied consistently across the entire language. This is genuinely shocking for most learners, because they were taught to treat each reduced form as a separate vocabulary item to memorize, when in reality, understanding the underlying rule of connected speech could unlock dozens of reductions instantly, without ever memorizing them individually. It's the difference between memorizing 1,000 math answers versus understanding one formula that solves them all. The moment you understand connected speech as a system rather than a list, native English stops sounding chaotic and starts sounding logical. And that shift alone can compress years of confused listening into weeks of genuine understanding. What happens if you never use it? What if avoiding words like lemme was actually making you sound less fluent, not more polite or more correct? Many learners deliberately avoid reduced forms because they were taught that let me is proper and lemme is somehow inferior or incorrect. But in real, casual, native conversation, always saying the full, unreduced form can make speech sound stiff, overly formal, or even robotic, like a person reading from a script instead of actually talking. Native listeners pick up on this instantly, even if they can't explain why. It creates a subtle but very real gap between the speaker and the listener, making conversations feel slightly less natural, slightly more distant. This doesn't mean full forms are wrong. They absolutely have their place in formal writing, presentations, or professional settings. But refusing to ever use reduced forms in casual speech is like showing up to a beach party in a full business suit. Technically correct, but completely mismatched to the moment. The real skill isn't choosing one form forever. It's knowing exactly when to switch. Fluent speakers move fluidly between let me in a formal email and lemme in a quick text to a friend, without even thinking about it. Learners who master this switch instantly sound more natural, more relaxed, and more connected to real native rhythm, because they're no longer just saying correct